wildlife crime is increasing. Did you read today's newspaper?
Ma'am, aren't there any strong legal provisions and penalties that can control this?
There are many such laws in India, officer, but the biggest problem lies in the implementation of these laws. Also, there is lack of knowledge, equipment and training among different enforcement officials and no efficient checks on wildlife trafficking, which is why this crime is on the rise.
Oh really, ma'am? Could you please take me through some of these wildlife protection laws and the legal provisions and penalties under them?
Sure, I can. Come, let me show you. Let me first give you a brief background about illegal trade in wildlife. This trade can be local or it can involve products traveling across the world through different mediums like air, rail, road, couriers, etc. However, most of this trade is illegal. India is one of the 20 countries with the highest rates of illegal trade in wildlife, which includes poaching, trading and smuggling of high-end, high-value species and products across international borders.
So, ma'am, what crimes constitute wildlife offences in India?
That's a good question, officer. I was just coming to that. Take a look. Hunting of any scheduled species under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 or any attempt to do so, Section 9 of the Act. Causing destruction or damage in any national park or sanctuary, Sections 35, 8 and 27. Possession of wildlife and or their derivatives without valid authorization from the Chief Wildlife Warden. Domestic or international trade in scheduled species or their derivatives 42, 43, 44, 49, 49B, Section of the Wildlife Protection Act. Illegal entry in a national park or sanctuary, Section 27, 35, 8. Entering a national park or a sanctuary with a weapon, Section 31, 35, 8 or the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Causing fire or using injurious substances in a sanctuary, national park, community reserve, conservation reserve or tiger reserve, Section 30, 32, 35, 8, 36A, 2, 36C2, 38 V2. Teasing or molesting of animals, causing disturbance or littering in a zoo, Section 38J under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. From these offences, you'd have surely noticed that the Act plays a major role in controlling the wildlife crime, isn't it? Let me take you through it and other important acts as well. In India, the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 is the umbrella legislation for the protection of wildlife. Wild animals are classified into 6 schedules. Only species listed in Schedule 5, vermin, are exempted for any penal act under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Schedule 1 species can be hunted only in very special conditions by the authorization of the Chief Wildlife Warden and especially when the species has become a threat to human life or is disabled or diseased beyond recovery. Schedule 1 to 4 species can be hunted with permission of the Chief Wildlife Warden or the authorized officer only if they are a threat to human life or property including standing crops or are diseased or disabled beyond recovery. Species listed in Schedule 1 to 4 and in Schedule 6 are protected wherever found.
This is indeed such an important law.
That's right. Now let's look at some of the legal provisions under the Biodiversity Act of 2002 that grant protection to endangered species. This act aims in conserving the biological diversity, maintaining and controlling the proper use of its components, ensuring equitable distribution of benefits derived from such utilization. The objectives of the Act provide for a safeguard of traditional knowledge, prevent biopiracy, prohibit people from claiming patents without the government's permission, etc. From directives to protect important biodiversity heritage sites rich in flora and fauna, to taking appropriate steps for the preservation of species that are on the verge of extinction, and outlining punishable offences with the nature of the punishments are the three pillars that make the Biodiversity Act a strong tool to safeguard the wildlife. Offences are cognizable and non-bailable, with punishment of imprisonment up to 5 years or a fine up to 10 lakh rupees or both. While these two are the most important laws that grant protection to the wildlife species and curb the spread of this crime, there are also other acts which have an important bearing on wildlife enforcement in India.
Such as
the Forest Conservation Act 1980, Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act 1992, Customs Act 1962, Prevention of Cruelty to Animals 1960, the Arms Act 1959, etc.
So, one thing is certain, ma'am, that for illegal wildlife trade to be regulated, it is important for all us officials to be educated about these crucial legal provisions and penalties.
Indeed it is, because a threat to the wildlife species is a threat to the entire ecosystem.
So, it is up to officers like us to keep this threat in check?
Yes, at the national level, the WCCB plays a pivotal role in collecting and collating intelligence related to organized wildlife crime activities and to disseminate it to the state for immediate action. The WCCB also assists the state governments in wildlife crime investigations to ensure successful prosecutions. One of its crucial functions is to ensure the implementation of obligations under the various international conventions and protocols that are in force at present. I'm proud to be a custodian of our country's wildlife treasure, and I'll do my best to protect it using legal means.
We all will.
That's right, we all will.